When you make the statement that everyone knows that God exists, it requires only one to say that I don't know that God exists, to disprove your whole entire premise on that. Regardless of the facts or not, whether it exists, when you make the statement that everyone knows something or everyone does something, all it takes is one individual to disprove you on that. So I'll tell you right here, I don't know that God exists.
Okay. The Bible says you do, but if you really don't, then you got nothing to worry about.
So
enjoy your life.
Since I don't know, my
now,
question
the Bible
is to you.
says you do.
Okay.
Romans 1:20 is a famous passage that people love to cite against atheists to say that atheists have knowledge of God's existence. Here you can see Eric Hovind, Kent Hovind's son, doing the same exact thing. However, a careful examination of the text, its context, and its historical and cultural background shows that this interpretation is not well supported. One reason why Romans 1:20 does not teach that everybody knows God exists is that the verse itself doesn't make that claim. As Douglas Moo notes in his commentary on Romans, Paul is not suggesting that everyone recognizes that this God is the God of the Bible. Rather, he is suggesting that all people have some knowledge of God's existence and power. Similarly, F.F. Bruce argues that the created world bears witness to God's existence and power, so that all men are without excuse for their failure to acknowledge him. In other words, Paul is just making a reference to natural theology here. Furthermore, there's examples throughout history where people do not believe in God or gods. So if you want to insist that this is teaching that people know God exists, you have to somehow reconcile the fact that some people are claiming, I don't know God exists. The problem with that is this. One of the strongest arguments for Christian theism that Christians have is an argument for miracles, especially one called the resurrection of Jesus. The problem here is that we rely on eyewitness testimony, the reliability of eyewitness testimony, and other things to argue for the resurrection of Jesus as a probably authentic miracle that happened in the past based off the data. Then we typically have to combat Humean-type objections to these miracle claims, like eyewitness testimony is not reliable, they could be lying, yada yada yada. And then we argue against those Humean objections. The problem here is, in order for you to argue that the person that's saying, I don't know God exists, is lying, you are using the same exact type Humean objection against their own inner testimony about their own psychological state. In other words, you're just being an epistemic hypocrite. In conclusion, the interpretation of Romans 1:20 being a proof text that everybody knows God exists, and therefore people that don't believe God exists are just lying, it just completely falls apart once you look at the broader scope of the data. Put simply, this is just an appeal to natural theology. And so Christians, we need to stop using this as a proof text to tell atheists they're lying. This is a bad argument that we need to stop pointing to.